What's up YouTube, Capital G here, letting you guys know what the heck happened at YCS Ghent and YCS Niagara Falls that both took place over the weekend. As always, I spent a good portion of my weekend watching the Konami live stream and reading up on the coverage so that you didn't have to. So yes, you guys heard me clearly. There were two YCS events that took place over the weekend at the same time. We had one in Europe and the other in North America, and it was actually a pretty awesome weekend of Yu-Gi-Oh! We had upwards of about 2,600 players between the two events, and there were some pretty surprising things that came out of this weekend. We really saw the absolute domination of Orcust at these two events. I'm gonna go ahead and start with YCS Ghent because that was the event that honestly I feel like more people were kind of watching and had more eyes on. It was the event with by far the larger population, so we'll go ahead and start there. So YCS Ghent, and I'll just admit straight up at the beginning of the video, about an hour ago I had no idea what country Ghent was in. I didn't know if it was the Netherlands or in Germany. Turns out it's in Belgium, so shout outs to Lithium. This event had almost 1,800 players at it, and it's really interesting because, man, I would say probably for about the last year and a half, the attendance for European YCSs has it's been absolutely phenomenal. I know Konami has to be excited and really thrilled with the turnout of their events. So this event had a whole lot of players at it, and when you look at the breakdown of what players were actually playing, not surprisingly, Sky Striker came in as the most popular deck at the event. I feel like most people think that Sky Striker is probably like the overall most well-rounded deck. Obviously, it can't, really OTK, and maybe it lacks a little bit in offense, but Sky Striker has always had an excellent grind game, still a whole lot of powerful cards, and it's one of those decks where if it opens really well, it can be hard to win and kind of doesn't lose to anything except like Eradicator Epidemic Virus. So it came in as the most popular deck. Also, we saw Orcust, surprisingly, and this was something that I didn't quite understand, Thunder Dragon actually having more representation than Salamangreats. I mean, that was something that I really didn't see. Salamangreats historically have done exceptionally well in Europe. I mean, they won the European Championship this year, so I thought that would have been an edge, but no, Thunder Dragon actually having better representation. Now, interesting enough, when it comes down to day two, at the YCS Ghent, Salamangreats had a decisive edge over every single deck. This is just going into day two. You can see Salamangreats with an overwhelming advantage over the field, including Orcust, Sky Striker, Thunder Dragons, Altergeist, Pendulums. They have such huge numbers, and it really would have led you to believe that Salamangreats probably had the highest representation in the top cuts. That was not the case. When you go to the top 32 cuts, it tells a completely different story, and it honestly makes you wonder just what the hell happened. You see Salamangreats with only 2 players in the top 32. Now, obviously, since they had the highest representation in day two, some of the Salamangreat players probably dueled against each other and they knocked each other out, but overall, Salamangreats definitely underperformed. For the representation that they had going into day two, they should have gotten more players in than just 2. I mean, this is only one more spot than Spiral, for God's sakes, but I really think that the story of this event, and we're going to talk about YCS Niagara Falls a little later, but look at the representation of Orcust. Orcust coming in with the number 1 slot, tied with Sky Strikers, but in addition to that, LunaLight Orcust coming in 2nd place. This is not something that I think that anyone would have predicted, and this was definitely the deck that showed out over the weekend. I think that people are starting to realize that LunaLight Tiger and Kaleido Chick are both incredibly strong cards, and Yellow Martin is basically what kind of tied it all together. But some of the other top contenders included Thunder Dragon. We also saw the Cyber Dragon Orcust build, if you guys want to call it the Blair Hunter deck or the Deception deck, because those are both players who have kind of put this deck on the map. Blair Hunter actually made the top cut at YCS Niagara, but yeah, the field was pretty much like Orcust dominated, and to that point, it seemed to be more and more apparent as we got deeper and deeper into the tournament that these Orcust decks are absolutely taking over the competitive meta. This is a nice little screenshot of your top 8 for YCS Gant, and you guys can see 50% of the decks in the top 8 were running Orcust cards. Now it says Orcust here and it shows Galatea, but just keep in mind that that includes basically any deck that was running the Orcust combo, that was running Orcust cards. You actually have a little bit of a breakdown. 2 of these decks were LunaLight Orcust, and then another one was Cyber Dragon Orcust. So some players might consider Cyber Dragon Orcust to just kind of be like a Cyber Dragon deck, or LunaLight Orcust to be a LunaLight deck. And actually, the finals of YCS Gant saw Cyber Dragon Orcust versus LunaLight Orcust. LunaLight actually ending up taking down the game and winning the event. This is actually the deck list right here, and it's really interesting because so many of the LunaLight cards have just been incredibly powerful. Even if you're not running LunaLights to make things like Leo Dancer and Panther Dancer, which the other build, which we'll talk about momentarily at YCS Niagara, did actually run, you just get so much advantage out of these cards. LunaLight Tiger being a monster reborn that's not a hard once per turn that you can bounce with Zephyros the Elite and Yellow Martin. LunaLight Kaleido Chick being a cost to dump into the graveyard, so effectively if she hits the field, there is absolutely no way to stop her effect in the entire game, because the second you activate it, that card is already in the graveyard. I really like this. This is interesting. Running Eradicator Virus in the main deck, I guess that being kind of the answer to Sky Striker, or if you're playing against like a rogue matchup like Ultrageist, being able to get rid of all those traps just instantly. And the reason that I think more players are switching builds, are not really running pure Orcust, but more players are starting to run like LunaLight Orcust as the default deck, is because when you get so many monsters out of LunaLight Tiger and Kaleido Chick, it means that you have access to plays like Outer Entity Azathoth, and obviously that shuts down your opponent's ability to Nibiru you. So you can basically like do your entire Orcust combo, you can make all your plays, and your opponent can't really do anything to stop you. You also get access to things like Abyss Dweller and the Evil Swarm Bahamut, which are like also just more disruptions for your deck. Now when it comes to YCS Niagara, and let me just say this, and hopefully I don't offend anybody, I kind of feel, and this is bad, considering that I'm an American, I kind of feel like this was the JV event. This event felt a lot lesser than YCS Gant. You guys can see the population at YCS Niagara was under 800 players, which is actually kind of putrid. This event was also not streamed, so I feel like 90% of the eyes on the weekend when it comes to competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! Were on the European event. It had over double the population. It was live streamed. The coverage was absolutely amazing. So I feel like this event definitely took a back seat to Gant, but that doesn't mean that there weren't interesting things that happened at the event. When you look at the top 32 breakdown, very similar to YCS Gant, you see Sky Strikers and Orcust kind of leading the way. Salamangreats did significantly better in North America. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but Salamangreats coming in with the same exact representation as pure Orcust. We did see other Orcust hybrid builds, Cyber Dragon Orcust, Blair Hunter being one of the players. We saw LunaLight Orcust in here as well. And interestingly enough, just like at YCS Gant, it became more and more apparent as you got deeper into the tournament that Orcust was the deck leading the charge. Orcust was going to be the deck that you had to beat. This is the top 8 breakdown of YCS Niagara, and it is uncanny because you guys might notice 50% of the top 8 being Orcust hybrid decks, and that's the same exact number that we saw at YCS Gant. So to me, this kind of says that Orcust, or at least Orcust versions, are the best deck of the format right now, and it was the same kind of 2 variants of Orcust that were seeing the most success, the Cyber Dragon and the LunaLight builds. I kind of feel like moving forward is just a prediction that those will be the more popular builds of Orcust because they just give you more options than your standard Orcust. If you're playing the LunaLight build, then obviously you get access to like the rank 4 Xyz pool, things like Abyss Dweller, Outer Entity Azathoth to stop Nibiru. You get plays involving like Evil Swarm Nightmare, which is like an awesome form of disruption, and this build actually did run Leo Dancer and Panther Dancer. So Leo Dancer, we all know, is just kind of like another version of Boros for Dragon. 3500, cannot be destroyed by card effects, can't be targeted, and can attack twice, so she's a win condition. And if you're playing the Cyber Dragon version, obviously you get access to the Contact Fusion, Cybernetic Overflow. I think another big takeaway was Gren Maju is not a one-hit wonder. Gren Maju ended up winning YCS Night Niagara. It was not a Golden Castle build. In fact, if I don't know, unless my eyes deceive me, this doesn't feel like a build that was really focused around Gren Maju. It seemed like a build that was kind of using Gren Maju potentially as a win condition. He said that he won about 50% of his duels with Gren Maju, but his deck was not beholden to it. So no Eater of Millions, no Golden Castle. There's no super heavy focus on banishing. Obviously, you have your Desires and you have your Gizmek Orochi, but that's pretty much it when it comes to banishing. So I think that Gren Maju builds are kind of moving away. This build was more danger oriented. In fact, he even played Danger Response Team, which is a really good card. It can bounce danger monsters to your hand so that you can just reuse them, and it can draw cards, including its graveyard effect. So it's a powerful kind of card. By the way, if that wasn't crazy enough, he was running a whopping 3 copies of Danger Zone in the side deck. I have always loved this card. It basically being a graceful charity for the Danger archetype. And if you combine Danger Zone with card destruction and also like Danger Response Team, this guy can be drawing so many cards and discarding so many. And obviously discarding Dangers is like no thing because they will trigger. And this is basically just kind of a go second OTK your opponent deck. I mean, he's running 3 copies of Hey True Nade, and he said against like control decks in one instance Sky Striker, he just passed for 3 straight turns until he accumulated enough resources to be able to confidently OTK his opponent, activate the Hey True Nade. Your opponent doesn't have a Solemn. All right, time to go to work and just OTK them. So I think that this is a really cool take on Gren Maju, and definitely shows Gren Maju is not a one-hit wonder. But what did you guys take away from this event? I had a few takeaways. Number 1, it seems like Orcust variants are kind of the decks to beat right now. Number 2, there has been crazy ban list speculation already. People already talking about LunaLight Tiger for the for the ban list. I mean, don't get me wrong, guys. She's strong, but getting banned, like, get out of here with that cheese. I think it's more likely that Nightmare Mermaid is just, the card's gone. We now know that we have probably about 3 weeks to play it, and then it's just toast. My third takeaway was, I don't know, man. Guard Dragon decks did not do well at these events. You did not really see a lot of Guard Dragon combos. It seems like the format is very control-based, and I think Guard Dragon decks maybe just don't have an answer to Nibiru at will, or whereas these Orcust decks can make things like Cyber Dragon Infinity, they can also make, you know, as a thought, like they actually have outs. But it was a crazy weekend overall, and I want to know what you guys thought of it. So whatever you guys thought, leave it in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. As always, subscribe if you have not already, and turn on that notification bell for daily videos.